Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session. So today I have a pleasure of being joined by two very cool people, Mark Derksen, Head of Talent Mobility at Uber, and Jason Suto, VP of Talent Mobility at BlackRock. Gents, you mind giving a bit of an intro about yourself?
Yeah, sure.
I'm Marcelo, Jason. By all means, go ahead, Mark.
Okay. I'm Mark Derksen. I work at Uber. I joined 3 months ago, so while still working remotely during the pandemic, where we currently see the end of. I have been in cloud mobility for about 20 years, I think, even now, and currently in a very exciting period. Over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Jason Suto. I am the one of the vice presidents of talent mobility, partner within BlackRock. Have been in the global mobility industry for 24 years, and coming up on my 2-year anniversary in the fall with BlackRock.
Thank you so much. All right, so what brings us here today is a massive change in all the landscape of work that affects everyone around the globe. What we've seen in the past years was a trend that started bringing people more close to their own lives rather than to their own office. And that became something about the nomads, that those crazy people that don't have an office, and eventually start to become a thing where some people really travel and have multiple offices in places they work from. And over the past 10 years, we start seeing companies building massive departments, sometimes 100% of the workforce internally distributed, a truly global workforce without barriers, where time zones don't really matter, working in completely different ways in asynchronous ways. And up until 2 years ago, people would say, well, this is still a bit of a fad, it will probably fade away at some point. Or it's just for a few business areas, just for a few companies or a few style of workers. But then we got hit by this pandemic, in which we're in the 4th wave of, which still persists. But as humans do, we persevere and we adapt and we overcome. The truth is, we saw a singularity on what it means to work remotely. There was this massive catalyst as a forcing function that led people to work distributed throughout the whole world, companies to embrace this and to actually learn from it. And we also saw from a lot of people and companies is that a lot of unexpected things happened. Productivity in some cases skyrocketed. For some people, they got more in touch with their loved ones. They found out they could do their best work from wherever. A lot of people moved, found new houses, new place to live, new ways to enjoy life in a way. So we saw that from the Global Workforce Report that a lot of people are moving places, cities, whole countries. And a lot of the companies that moved to remote first, or to remote friendly environments, they report that they don't really want to go back. And the ones that do go back and want to go back, which is perfectly fine, there's always a change. There's something that changed fundamentally, either now permitting people to work more from wherever they want, or be more flexible in certain ways. It has changed in the entire landscape of hiring, of communicating, of team events, team building, how we treat people, how we treat retention within teams and whole companies. On the same side, we see that this remote approach brings a lot of different opportunities. We saw a lot of companies at some point blaming the fact that they didn't have a lot of diversity because locality, right? The local pool of talent was limited, so eventually you got to hire whatever is close. But now you have whole world you can hire from. You can build work environments, work conditions that suit the people best, rather than because it's what fits an office and what are the things that you can provide in that one country. At the same time, this has a massive hit in how people perceive work, how people engage with work. Are they tired? Not? Are they happy? Do they feel more productive? Actually, the opposite. How does it affect people? We see across the globe that the effects are tremendous and often quite differ from one person to another, from one company to another, and sometimes even within the same company, from different very big companies, as we know, with different dynamics and strategies around this. So this brings a lot of questions. How do we deal with this? How do we continue to deal with people's wishes, this new perception of work and work-life balance, in a way in which I'm now talking to you, but 10 seconds later, I have my baby son running around and doing crazy things around me. How does this affect everyone? Companies, the team, the hiring, the keeping, the retention, the whole talent strategy that we've known for decades and has slowly progressed in a certain way, but quite slowly and quite steadily. And now all of a sudden we have this massive boom, right? So today we have these two very experienced people, and we're gonna have essentially chat a bit about this. I have a few questions that I'm gonna share, and so we can chat about them. If anyone on the other audience wants to send us over some questions, happy to pick that up. But I wanna start with like a thought-provoking question. What was, or what is today, the unexpected challenge that you have to deal with, or that you see that affects you or the ecosystem around you the most? What is the unexpected element of this that is still in the works of figuring out how to best deal with it? Maybe you can start, Mark.
Yeah, actually, instead of a challenge, I think the most unexpected thing was that we were able to go overnight completely remote. You know, if anyone had suggested that, you know, from tomorrow on or from Monday on, we're not come to the office anymore, and we do that for a year, then everyone would have declared you crazy, that it wouldn't be possible. And we have showed actually that it is possible. And what we've also seen with companies, that it increased the employee experience, it increased the productivity. Of course, sometimes there was also a drop in focus, or, you know, the team morale, and how do you deal with that? So unexpectedly for me, the biggest thing was that it worked. Unexpectedly now is that, yeah, it sounds almost crazy, but we cannot expect that people want to go back as it was. And well, we've seen it during this day in several conversations as well. People would like to have a sort of combination. People do miss the coffee machine talk. People do miss see each other in 3D. People don't miss the commute. So that's my quick experience on this.
Yeah, I would mimic exactly what Mark just said. And in addition to that, you know, it's quite a challenging time that we're in. We remain human beings, you know, even after the past 12 months that we've gone through. And part of the human experience is interacting with one another in person. So I think it's definitely going to be challenging to meet the needs and requests of the employees who are saying right now, hey, I really like this working from home thing. It fits my lifestyle. It fits my family's needs. And also at the same time, still making the work aspect a human experience, and being able to build a corporate culture from that. You know, when part of the work environment around the world are migrating to an asynchronous type of environment, possibly.
Yeah, very much so. And one of the things that sort of attached to this is, all of a sudden we see something that in most of the companies, like something that happens here and there for a few people, which is like requests to relocate for a certain period of time, or to change city to another, or often to another country. But we saw in a lot of cases that a lot of requests coming in, a lot of people that all of a sudden realized that they were able to work perfectly remotely. And now that the call back happened, they feel like, well, maybe I can work from whatever for a certain period of time. And we see that people like yourselves, you're in the middle of all this, right? Something that you probably had to deal with like very sporadically or here and there in certain situations, even sometimes make an exception here and there based on certain personal conditions that people have. But now you have a standard, right? And you're in the middle of it all. So how do you feel about like more now from someone that has to deal with it more than understanding from a corporate perspective how this affects and changes companies, but exactly how did this affect your role?
If I can
go first, Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question, right? It's indeed it started with I work at a company with a huge international workforce. So for them, the need to stay in the country where the office is, well, actually it's not their home country, doesn't make sense. So a lot of people did move out, go to their home countries, met their families again, and start working from there. We all indeed needed to treat those requests as exceptions and look at it case by case. I couldn't imagine how many scenarios there are of people requesting this and how relevant they are, sometimes not. And then indeed, now we need to set the new normal on, how do we deal with this? And I think that's the very hard part, because if you look at now, most companies say, we will go to a sort of mix. You will have to work a couple of days from the office and a couple of days from home. Requests will come in, but I don't like that. I like to work 100% in the office. I like to work 100% from home. And then you go again back to the individual cases to see what you can do. And it depends on the company. It depends on where the person wants to work from. So for us, it's changing our landscape of the traditional global mobility or talent mobility. And it's also looking at, okay, how, if we're gonna roll out a new policy, we have to mitigate risk. We have to look at what is the tax situation in this situation? What is the social security? Is the health insurance covered? So we started doing this, looking at our company. Where are we based? Where are the most people that working with us are they from? What is the top 5? And start working on that. And then look forward to the next step. So I think that's where we still are in the middle of.
Yeah. I love this question, Marcelo. I think what employees tend to forget is that 12 months ago, this was an unprecedented situation. And I don't believe that many of them realize the amount of work that was going on behind the scenes in HR and tax and legal and immigration to make sure that the corporations continued to mitigate risk and stay compliant as best to our abilities. Now, granted, there obviously were some cases, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, where, we being unprecedented, we didn't know what road to go down. We were kind of, as they say, we were changing planes in the middle of the flight. So I think just because someone was able to turn on their computer and start typing and be in a location and say, hey, I'm doing work and my doorbell's not ringing and the police aren't here, to take me away, that they thought it was totally fine. There's a part of the movie Home Alone, if you've ever seen that, where the little boy Kevin goes into his big brother's room when he's not there, and he's rummaging through all his brother's stuff, and he yells out, hey, I'm going through your stuff, come out and get me. And I feel like that's the mentality of a lot of the employees. Hey, I'm working remotely, come and arrest me. Like, they just don't they just don't get what happens to, all behind the scenes for us to keep that plane flying. And just because you physically can turn on your computer and start typing in an email or pick up the phone and call a client doesn't mean that from a legal perspective that you can do that.
Yes, and a very good segue into that was one of the questions that someone posed. Now it's very easy on this subject to quickly go into a very tough area or question, which is we start having the requirements of the corporate company, the corporate world, and the requirements of the employee world, in which now that everyone saw what was possible and what they benefited from, and as you said, no one came out and got anyone, and so no one got arrested, no one got not even a slap on the wrist, because as you know, attenuating circumstances, but it does now pose an interesting situation in which the corporate world has to call people in and say, look, we've done what we could, but some things changed or not. But some things need to change, or we're not going to be as open as we used to because we have a lot of risk we have to mitigate. We just run a business that can't afford this, or whichever is the reason. But it is sort of a silent power struggle, right? And how do you see this? How do you reconcile the needs of the corporate world and the needs, the new needs of the employee world?
Mark, you want to take that first?
Yeah, I think about it. I think that's our everyday struggle at the moment now, right? It's to find that balance. And we send out surveys and listen to our employees to get an understanding of what they want and how we can, come to this agreement of a perfect way of working. But to be honest, we're not there yet, and I haven't seen a company honestly out there that has the goose with the golden eggs. It's a difficult puzzle.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be an overnight solution. I mean, it took us longer than 12 months now just to make it through a global pandemic. And it's going to take us as much time, if not more, through trial and error, through listening to employee feedback, to finding out what corporate needs need to be met in this changed environment, to see what's really going to work for each individual corporation. It's not going to be, an overnight solution, and definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution for, the entire global corporate population.
For sure. And so let's imagine that you can now send an email to your former self 12 months ago. It's the one shot. You can only send this email. Be it a warning, whatever it is. What would it be? So how would you prepare yourself now with what you know today, over a year in? What would you tell yourself?
That's a great question. I mean, I think I would write to myself and just, just with reassurance that everything's going to be okay. There's going to be challenges that you'll face. You'll work collaboratively with your internal partners to work through those challenges. But everything's going to be okay. And as bad as it was, I think, as an industry, we're all coming out of it educated and better off in a way. We're meeting the needs. Like as we said, it's been a very slow climb up until this point, and then boom, overnight, we had to come up with solutions to make remote working work. So yeah, so for me, I would just reassure that we'll all get through it together, but there's going to be challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. If I look back to last year, it's also been one of the exciting years in my working career, because suddenly we were not the global mobility team at the end of the process that were told to move someone from A to B. We were now really consulted and asked, what can we do? Help us out. We have people stuck. We are hiring people whose container is already on a ship, but they can't step into a plane anymore. It was, all the playbooks could get out of the window, and you needed to start from there. And I like the email. It's all going to be good, because I think if you look back now, of course, it was also a hard year with reorganizations in a lot of companies, but now we are all hiring as crazy again, and things are really picking up. And then it's more the unfortunate thing that is not economical, and with all the deaths and the illnesses that they've caused. Then I would go even back further and find out what it was and stop that bat from being eating, if that was the cause.
Yeah. And one of the things that I notice we keep going at it is the word again. So it's like we're starting to do things again. We're people coming back to the office again and things like that, which means a new cycle starting, right? We learned, we adapt, we as a species, we overcame this or started to. What changed fundamentally now that we talk about the core talent that we want to attract and retain? So there's like two angles. One is new people coming in, and the other one making sure that people staying with us are happy and well in their own career. So what fundamentally changed in what we were doing before and now that we are rebooting the whole system?
I think that the past 12 months really caused people to reflect on what truly matters in their lives and who are the other people that matter in their life. And going forward, when it comes to talent or going to work for organizations, I think that people are going to be more vocal about their needs in being close to family or close to loved ones, or keeping their spouse partner close or moving with them as they were before, because it's all about meeting the needs of someone in what are the priorities in their life. I think not to necessarily say that gone are the days where people prioritize their job and saying it's one of the most important things, but I think definitely people have elevated family and friends and loved ones above a career on their list. So as talent managers and mobility managers, we're going to have to listen to that and find ways in order to meet that employee's needs so that their experience, both personally and within the organization, is going to be a great experience.
Yeah. I agree. I think, and there is also an advantage to the employer as well, right? Normally, if we would hire someone from abroad, it was immediately starting the relocation process. And now we can also think, should this person work from here, or is he good actually where he or she is currently is? So it's literally another dimension. The pool is bigger to hire from.
Definitely. And now something a bit more philosophical. We have 5 more minutes, which is with all this that we know, with all this change, with this singularity, this catalyst pandemic that happened, we now see what we used to call the future of work existing today, right? I don't think, if I were to be honest, even today I have trouble explaining to my grandmother what do I do? Because the first thing she asks is, "You're home. Who pays you? How do you get paid to be at home? What do you actually do?" And so all this new era is coming about. What do you think, in your own perspective, a more personal one, is our duty, or yours, or your companies, or any companies, and because we're shaping what will become the future of work. Everyone talked about the future of work is going to be amazing, and same way that we had AI coming into our lives every day, like Siri and Google AI and all that. We now have the future of work becoming reality, and so we all have a saying in shaping it and making sure that the future of our offspring, the people that come after us, have something new or hopefully better. What do you think is our take here? What should we do?
I mean, I think that, yeah, I think that the future is full of possibilities. I think now that we're hopefully pulling out of the pandemic, I compare it to, you know, the tech boom of the 90s and also like the industrial boom in the early 1900s. I think this whole pandemic is really going to cause a fairly rapid effect on what the future of work looks like within the next couple of years. I would say that children being born today, when they are ready to go into the workforce, you know, in about 22, 23 years, it's going to be a much different landscape than where we are today. And I would think that most of that is going to have to do with what 2020 brought about in the disruption of the global economy and global work environment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, the whole situation of mobility is changed and will change further. I think especially business travel, if you look at that will change. It's not that obvious anymore to jump in a plane and go somewhere to attend a meeting, because we have seen we can do it like this. Of course, we all miss it, so something of it will come back, and of course it's important to meet people face to face. And then also what I said earlier, you know, first initiative that we had, if we're hiring people abroad, is relocating them, and now it's not always necessary to relocate. So movement there will change as well. People will stay at places for a longer time, perhaps. If we look at a topic that we discussed already years ago, the gig economy, will that get a new impulse? Because if your job at this tech company is done, then the same tech company in that country, or the other tech company in that country, can maybe hire you for the next gig. So there will be a turnaround in mobility.
Thank you. That's it, folks. It was very lovely to have you here. Very entertaining, very educational, and I hope that everyone watching us took something away. I certainly did. So all is left is thank you again. It was lovely to chat with you for this half an hour. See you soon.
Marcelo.